And we are so back after a jam-packed weekend of action to go over on today's episode of Today in Esports on the Global Gaming Network channel, a place where we get to go over everything to do with esports across the world. VCT, League of Legends, IEM Melbourne, and CDL Major 3 just concluded this past weekend. We'll go over all of that and more. This is Today in Esports. Hello, everybody, and welcome around the world. Thanks so much for joining us on this fine episode of Today in Esports. My name is Andy. Joined with me, as always, is Chris. How was your weekend, man?
It was great. As you said, it was jam-packed. Everything going on, COD, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, VALORANT. We have so much to cover, but today we're going to switch it up a bit. Usually we start with Call of Duty, but today we're going to start with some Counter-Strike.
Yeah, hitting the Uno reverse card, like we were saying. IEM Melbourne had just concluded this past weekend. We got all the top dogs back in action. m0NESY now with the Falcons after losing to them in the previous PGL tournament. Not to mention how we got Vitality, world's #1, as well as MAUSE back into the mix. So it was a very fun tournament, and as far as the seeding is concerned, we did have MAUSE, the #1 team out of Group A, and the Vitality, the #2 team out of Group B. So they did have a winners round 1 bye, and we started off with the quarterfinal matchup this past weekend. We're going to be starting off with the Gamer Legion taking on this new look for the Falcons, and it really did set the tone in between two blockbuster of a matchups. First up, Falcons with the Gamers Legion. We started off on train. Falcons came off firing, securing a solid 13-3 win, but it was a commanding half. You see right here, just 9-3 with slowly step on. Nico was popping off, and you know, when Nico's feeling good, this team just simply cannot lose. Gamer Legion did fight early as far as this tournament is concerned, but it's pretty much all that they had at the beginning of the day. They took a map off of MAUSE for crying out loud, but still, Falcons clearly were the better team here, and even on Nuke, left to be desired. So only putting up a total of 7 rounds were Gamer Legion versus Falcons, and m0NESY let them have it, had a 2.0 KD, 30-15 with an 87 ADR. Now over towards the next quarterfinals, we do have Mongols going up against Team Liquid, and well, I hate to say it, but this is one matchup that you really did feel like Team Liquid did need to win. They played Mongols incredibly close, especially on this map one. It was Liquid's pick on Anubis. They were able to win 13-9 in the end, but they looked polished, did Team Liquid. I mean, ecstatic to say the least. I mean, Siwi was a fantastic IGL, leading this team to a lot of different clutch situations and being able to fight back in a numbers disadvantage. But the latter half of the entirety of this best of 3, oh, it was all Mongols, baby. I mean, feed as much to 9-10 as possible, especially on that final map of Infernal. It was electric. I mean, when Mazzino is sitting there buying Tech 9s, walks in, finds 2 pieces with a Tech 9, and he's still buying 9-10 all of these ops. Yeah, I want that teammate in my ranked matches. That was godlike. Mongols were able to win this one 2-0, only losing 16 rounds within the last 2 maps. So quarterfinals set off ever so wonderfully. It's a single elimination tournament, keep in mind you. So we did have to unfortunately say goodbye to 2 teams, and that would be Team Liquid as well as Gamer Legion. So that was the quarterfinals matchup. Now we got to get set and ready because we got some semifinals to talk about.
And starting with the semifinals, we have Falcon versus MAUSE going to Dust 2. And what an electric semifinals we would start with. In Falcons versus MAUSE, Dust 2, Falcons were relentless. They crushed it 13-3 with a 9-3 first half. And, well, this is exactly what we were expecting when m0NESY joined the team. Tessus was on point, though, with 14 kills, 7 deaths, and an 86.6 ADR. They would take this map fairly convincingly and booking their way into the second map, trying to get that 2-0. And, well, they would. They would go to Nuke, and Falcons kept the momentum, winning 13-6, and, well, they would start the first half 8-4, once again putting on a dominant performance, only limiting MAUSE to only 2 rounds in the second. Nico rose to the occasion with 17 kills, 10 deaths, and an 83.5 ADR. This would help Falcons punch their ticket to the finals in a 2-0 sweep. Nico was the series MVP with 31 kills, 20 deaths, and a 92.9 ADR. And this is Falcons looking at their best going into the grand finals. Now we have Vitality versus the Mongols in the second semifinal match. And, well, it was all Vitality. On Mirage, they dismantled Mongols 13-3 with an incredible 11-1 first half. m0NESY was lights out, posting 19 kills, 5 deaths, and a 99.8 ADR. Now, on to Nuke, the second map. Well, this is exactly what they're doing, keeping that momentum going. Great job by Vitality again, just doing exactly what we would expect them to do going into this next map. They just dismantled them. Ropes took over 19 kills, only 9 deaths, and a monstrous 128.8 ADR. Vitality would sweep it, and just what can you do against this Vitality team here? First half just showing how incredibly dominant they are going into this map. Again, you can't get them. They're just killing everybody left, right, finding the kills here. Headshot up the ramp, can't get him. Once again, Vitality doing such a great job with this. They would set the stage to face Falcons in the Grand Finals, and well, what a match we would have.
Can't believe this is the Grand Finals that we had. Falcons 2-0ing MAUSE after MAUSE played Vitality super close in Bucharest. Mongols went down, I guess, a whimper versus Vitality, but definitely turned some heads. But Vitality still the world's #1, going up against the new potential number 2, number 3, number 4. Maybe you should decide that in the comments down below. But the Falcons are looking fierce. They are Grand Finals bound. We knew that they were prepared to be playing for championships, even with Dexter in the mix. Now with Monacy, here is how Grand Finals did shake up. In this map #1, I gotta tell you, it was not competitive at all. I mean, for the Inferno that came around, whatever Falcons once looked like on this, it was not it whatsoever. But 'tis the nature in a best-of-5. Vitality felt more than comfortable going in towards this map #1 with a Grand Slam championship on the horizon with a $1 million prize as well. Falcons were looking to take this map #1 by storm, and boy howdy did they ever. I mean, they steamrolled 13-2, leading 10-2 at the half. Here's the last round that was able to get one. Ropes will end up dying in the 1v1, but that is the last little ditch hope as Vitality were able to take map #1. ZywOo was clutch such again in this map #1. He went plus 12, 17-5 with a 106.8 ADR and 100% KAST.
And well, let's go to map #2 and Dust. Well, Falcons were looking for a way back, and they would find it up 7-5 in the half. This is exactly what they would need to push it to overtime. But, well, that's Vitality couldn't quite close it out here. They got it back, as you see here. They're able to get this, push it into overtime. You see the sigh of relief, but it wouldn't matter too much. Here, Falcons were able to find their momentum, get the 4 rounds it needed in overtime to push it 1-1.
Now we move over towards map #3. Train would be the next venue, and Vitality would have this map #3 pick themselves. This one was a little bit more competitive than the last pick that we saw from Vitality, as we saw there at the end of the half. But a fickle beast can be Train, as it was a steamroll, and now we have a 2-1 lead for Vitality.
And on to Mirage, map #4. Falcons need to find a way back. Can they find the success that they found in #2? And, well, yes, they could. They would even end up going 6-6 in the half after a strong start, but they would go ahead and pull away 13-10 in the final.
Dust 2 may have been Falcons' venue to at least enact revenge, and they're forcing it, screaming, erupting on the crowd. Map #5 between Falcons and Vitality. It goes down on Nuke. Of course it does. Falcons jumped out with a massive lead. I mean, 4 off the initial rip is insane. Even that shot on the test is trying to get back down over towards ramp. He can simply not even believe it itself. This was a emphatic lead, 11-5. Where do these scorelines start to come from? Vitality starting to feel for themselves. They ripped 6 in a row. All of the emotions all over the place. Falcons truly felt like they had this map won. Vitality, they had a different answer. You give them an inch, they will turn it into a French-sized Walmart. I don't even know what that means, but there were so many different clutches coming through at the end. ZywOo was the continuous hero because of course he was, grinding out 35 kills with 31 deaths, a 94 ADR, give or take maybe 0.1 or 2, but it was just absolutely insane. Vitality clinched the series 3-2. They secured the championship and the Grand Slam. ZywOo was the series MVP with an unreal total of 110 kills, just 82 deaths, and a 91.1 ADR across all 5 maps. Vitality will hoist the trophy and banks $1 million. While Falcons fought valiantly, they could not stop the Grand Slam dream, and they simply could not get the ESL extra $100,000 in the bag.
And well, what can we say here though? They almost got there, almost were able to take that 100K bounty off of them, but just not enough. This is going into those last overtimes that we saw there. They were unable to get it. Cheers all around for Vitality as they were able to pick up that grand final championship.
your champions, the Intel Extreme Masters, Vitality! Kings of Counter-Strike, this is Vitality's world!
It was truly their tournament to lose. Vitality are, without a doubt, the world's #1, but as Grand Finals would conclude, they're not. I guess you could definitely make them bleed. Gods are definitely meant to bleed. Look, Mouse brought them to map 5. Falcons brought them to map 5. Mouse just lost to Falcons 0-2 as well. The entire Counter-Strike community is in disarray right now, and the only thing we know for certainty, Mongols are fighting. Team Liquid might be looking to make a couple changes. Who knows? They're fighting as well. Falcons with Modesty look really good. They beat Mouse. Vitality are still #1, but Counter-Strike is at an all-time high. And as I was talking about, we'll hint at this later, they're about to be packing their bags to go back to Copenhagen as they're about to be preparing for another tournament this upcoming week. Simply insanity. Now, you saw there were some teams that definitely could use some assistance, if you ask me, with some of those shots. You're not going to hit op shots like Modesty overnight, but you can practice for it as well. And that's where our sponsor for today's video comes in for AIM Labs. Shoot just like Vitality at the end of the day, and you can hone your FPS skills with AIM Labs. It is an aim trainer that you can find on a multitude of different platforms. Here's a word from our sponsor.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in AIM Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what AIM Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
And onto the Rift, it is time for LTA North. They have finally made it into the group stage. Fearless is finally in full effect with their best of threes, and what a better way to kick it off than FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves. FlyQuest looking to make some changes and make sure that they can win some of their their best of threes, and well, they did make a great change as they got the 2-0 victory over 100 Thieves in their first match here. Let's take a look at game 1. Whippo with the gank from Bucio. They're going to try to get it onto Sniper here, and nice casket knock up into the kill. They're going to get that secured, and there it is. First blood for Whippo. FlyQuest off to a good start, but did fall behind a little bit until this insane Surima shuffle in to push back from Quad, gets that ult off. They are going to be able to get 3 kills here, make it a #4. Then they're going to be able to secure the Dragon. Using this momentum, they would go ahead and push the game in. Now look at this, the 506 Corky from Mossow is going to be able to catch out the Callista, and well, you don't want to run into a big one like that. There it is, boom, boom, big one, gets the final kill. They're going to get that kill onto it. They'll clean up. Inspired will get the kill on Ayla, and well, 15-9 score. They used that momentum, grabbed game #1 in convincing fashion after a little bit of a rocky start, but now to game 2, and well, they would just carry it straight over here. Look at the slice and dice from the Renekton. That ultimate's gonna grab another kill. They're gonna push on to River. Boom! Down goes the doggo. Can't escape that one. FBI trying to get into a safe position, trying to get the make it rain down, but it's not going to be enough. You can't fight off 4 of them. They're going to get that kill. 11-0 is the score right now. What can you do if you're 100 Thieves? Well, maybe you can find a kill here or there, but godlike Renekton is going to get the kill onto that. Victor's going to jump over the wall. FBI is going to get killed once again. You can't escape the Victor. Too much power out of FlyQuest. They're going to get another kill as they pretty much shut down this game here. You get a couple consolation prize with the help of the Fountain from 100 Thieves, but it's not enough. FlyQuest easy 2-0 against 100 Thieves to pick it up, and great job for them being able to kind of, squash their best of 3 falls that they had in split 1. But now let's move on. Let's see what happened with the rest of LTA North on Saturday and Sunday. We'll take a look at those standings as we go into it here. We did have, of course, FlyQuest beating 100 Thieves. Dignitas were able to beat Shopify Rebellion. Team Liquid took the win over this. Team Liquid took the win over Lion, and then C9 took the win over Disguise to give you these group standings for the first week of the group phase. But that wasn't all that happened in League this week. Let's take a look at LEC, who had their road trip to Madrid, hosted by Koi, and let's take a look at how their weekend went. In their first matches versus Fnatic, they would go 1-1 into a Game 3, and what a banger Game 3 it would be. Let's take a look at the fights here happening before. It was so back and forth between both of the teams. They would get the shutdown here, and it would lead into this amazing
goes in, the Impale stops him, the bailout not enough. Super will get the shutdown, and meanwhile in the base, Oscurin is met by a pop. Blossom TP's coming in as well by Humanoid. Fnatic are looking for the win. It's all on Humanoid. Humanoid is dead. LP! Magnificence! Majesty in Madrid. MKoi, hold on. And now it's MKoi who are in the base of Fnatic. It is Razork who has to try and hold, but there is nothing left. MKoi have done it. You'll take the win out of their cold, dead hands. MKoi never give up. The inhibitor respawns. It doesn't matter. They'll still win. They can walk back. They can take the inhibs. MKoi win at home.
Well, Fnatic trying to channel their inner Expeke buff, but the Madrid buff was stronger, and Koi were able to take that win over Fnatic 2-1, giving them a massive run into, well, the Spain versus Spain Sunday showdown between Giantx and Koi. Game number 1, we came out, Jojo, godlike, on the RA, doing such a great job here. You can't escape the Firefox rush. They're gonna get in, kill number 1, kill number 2. Here it is, MKoi using that momentum of the win against Fnatic on day number 1 to pick up a game number 1 win against Giantx. But Giantx has that Madrid buff as well. We know they're a Spanish team also. They had a big crowd behind them, and they wanted to put on a show, and they did. Game number 2, they come out swinging, and well, Koi had no way to get past their good job on the macro. They had such good macro game, not the highest kill game, but as you can see, they have 3 dragons here. They had all 6 grubs, and look at that Tristana popping the Rakan there, helping them get the win and evening up the series 1-1. Now we go to game number 3, and the fans were on their feet, but it would be the Sky's Descent into the Mbessa, into the Nico, and well, you just can't escape all that CC and an Mbessa just running all over your team. There it is, 2 kills for Jojo Pune. They're going to be able to use this momentum to a sweeping game number 3, able to win that series 2-1 and take a 2-0 victory on the road in their hosted event. So great job by them. That's going to be 2 wins needed. And let's go ahead and take a look at the standings and the next matches moving in today. As we said, the rest of the matches, we had G2 versus Giantx. Giantx won versus G2. Big game for them on Sunday. We also had G2 versus Fnatic, and Fnatic were able to move off the loss. They got the win, and we look at today's matches later today. Heretics versus SA Gaming, BDS versus Vitality will be back in Berlin though. Now, we take a look at the standings. Carmine Corp standing strong at the top of the league with a 5-1. Of course, Fnatic to take the 1 loss, so they're sitting in second. The rest of the teams will be jostling for position as we do have playoffs coming up in a couple of weeks, leading to MSI. A great job to them, and we'll have to see how the rest of the LEC stands out as we go on.
Always an exciting time when it comes down to League of Legends. I cannot believe that Fnatic scammed that game away. But, you know, I'm excited to be able to watch more LEC and LTA as well. And keep in mind, that's just 204 regions. We do have the LCK and the LPL still fighting hard in the other 2 regions when it comes down to League of Legends, but similarly. So we're going to be shifting our focus now over towards VALORANT. Here on this show, we do take a look at the Americas and the EMEA region, but as always, we do have Pacific and Chinese regions. They're in playoffs, and they keep my heart in that specific region. But we're going to start off with talking about the Americas, starting off with their bracket. They are fully into playoffs now, as we do have the group stages that concluded just this past weekend, with the winner of Group Omega being G2 Esports, nobody was surprised. And then we did have the number 1 team from Group Alpha was Crew Esports. So starting off with the quarterfinal matchups will be Sentinels versus Cloud9, and this one got ugly very, very quickly. I mean, map 1 Ascent was a gamble. We haven't seen this from Sentinels, not in the past 60 days or so. And C9 thought that with their 13 win versus Leviathan in week 2 that they could chow Sentinels on it. Not going to be the case. 13-9 into Sentinels pick 4-8 map number 2. Now they're up 1-0. They're 5-3 here on Pearl, by the way. And well, for Cloud9, they realistically have not played this all too much. I mean, this, especially for the scoreline, definitely suggested that they did not look too comfortable on this one, if you ask me. Pearl for the map 2 ended cataclysmically for Cloud9 as they were looking to potentially be the number 1 team from their group. They lost to G2 their opening round. They lost to Sentinels, who are a World Championship talented roster, if you ask me, but Cloud9 got some explaining to do here in this series. Mitch went absolutely insanity with a 142 ADR, and although second was definitely leading the charge, Cloud9 will be dropped down into that lower bracket. But we do have another matchup, of course, that did conclude from that exact same side. 100 Thieves did lose to MIBR 0-2, so now we're going to have to see how those things did shake up as far as those other brackets are concerned. But it's moving a lot of action through the entirety of the weekend. We only have so much time to go over all the matches, so now we go over towards the upper semifinal matchups, where Crew were taking on MIBR, and then Sentinels were taking on G2. This is a rematch. It's El Clasico, if you ask me, for the Americas. G2 versus Sentinels, and it definitely delivered on all of the goods, plus a little bit more. This one was a lot of fun. I mean, G2, they're easily the number 2 team in the world going in towards this group stage, losing to T1 at Masters Bangkok. But Sentinels are making sure everybody is fully aware they are the number 2 team from Americas. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But this map number 1 on split, rather suggestive that it was definitely still a leg up for G2. They put them in the absolute dirt. But going over towards Icebox, this is where things got really interesting. This is actually G2's pick. And as far as Icebox is concerned, it should fit the bill as far as their playstyle is concerned. I mean, you would really do think that, especially for Jogamo on the Gecko, trying to be flexible for his team, saw bright spots on that in previous weeks, but it just simply was not meant to be. Not versus the Sentinels. They are well too polished on this combination, with second on that Omen really layering on the hurt. So now Sentinels are tied up 1 apiece, 13-11, and they're going in towards that map number 3. It was a decider that definitely sealed the fate here on Ascent. Sentinels have only played it once, and it was versus Cloud9. Otherwise, they have been banning it continuously and religiously at that. G2 have been playing this through a lot of different deciders. It was map 3 versus MIBR, and G2 did win 13-8. Not going to be the case here. 13-11 in the final 2 maps for Sentinels on top, baby. Bang. Went absolutely nuts. Zelsis was popping off for his team as well. G2 sent to the lower bracket for messing around. You be the decider of that one, but Sentinels had just guaranteed top 3, which means they have solidified their ticket to Masters Toronto, and the same could be said on the opposite side. MIBR took down Crew in a Latin American showstop, if you ask me, but man, I gotta tell you, that Crew got some explaining to do. But MIBR and Sentinels guaranteeing themselves tickets to Masters Toronto. That is some really fun stuff. So now we move over towards the next set of matches. We did have lower round 1 Evil Geniuses after beating their other matchup for Crew in their last few weeks of matches, are the number 4 team from Group Alpha. They're going up against a weakened Cloud9, and they took full-on advantage of this. I mean, going in towards the Fracture, I'm telling you right now, I don't know what Potter's been telling these guys behind the scenes, but she's got these boys looking nice. A 1-0 lead going in towards the Icebox, and if you told me this is how the scoreline was going to look going in towards maybe like week 2 or 3 from EG, I would have called you a madman. But still, nonetheless, EG stayed fighting. They looked polished. Yay on the Jet definitely came to play. Derek was hitting a lot of good shots there, and a lot of good utility with the Sova on Icebox is quite crucial indeed. But still, it was not meant to be for Cloud9. They looked so good in the group stages. They couldn't produce a single thing through overtime here at the end. EG will win it, lining things up here at the end for Icy. Very good Killjoy play at the end. Ye will be the standout player. Like I was saying, he was definitely playing some unreal Valorant. Went 55 and 35. I think his Jet might be back, but still, tough scenes for Cloud9. They will be relegated. We won't see them at Masters Toronto, so whatever is next for VCT Americas is probably where we're going to be seeing them next. But that wasn't the only match, again, that was happening in the lower semifinals. More teams were being eliminated. On the opposite side, it was NRG after being Leviathan, which means that we have 2 more teams to send home on the weekend. G2 Esports versus 100 Thieves. And this was a banger for all the wrong reasons. This was absolutely insanity incarnate. 100 Thieves always ban Lotus. It is a hard veto for them. So what that tells me is that they're essentially okay with going down 1-0 to then play the rest of the series. That's exactly what happened here as we went on towards Haven for the map one, very polished 13-4, and now we go in towards Split, which actually G2's pick, funnily enough. And this one went down to the wire. Jump peek with the pistol, very good for Cryo and 100 Thieves. The Sage pick, as unorthodox as it is, it worked once versus Sentinels, but it's a very square peg through a round hole type situation. It works this time versus G2. They win in overtime 14-12. Now we're tied up one apiece. Busio clapping, chirping like always. That's what we do. Love that emphatic carrier. So we go over towards Pearl. And the thing about Pearl, like how I was talking about for Ascent earlier for G2, this is very well rehearsed for them, given a multitude of facts that they have played it in Decider Mass versus EDG, Vitality, TL. They all banned it versus G2 because they know they're good at it. They picked it versus EDG, and they won 18-16. They also won versus Cloud9, and here's how everything did shake up. 100 Thieves taking that one map away from G2. That is all they're going to get in the lower bracket after beating NRG. They are packing their bags to go home. And then on May 2nd, we got G2 versus Evil Geniuses for a potential final spot at Masters Toronto. Again, if you do make top 3 in the playoff bracket, you do end up getting your ticket towards Masters Toronto. So G2 not done fighting yet. And then, of course, MIBR versus Sentinels, you saw there in the upper finals, will be fighting for that America's first seed.
And well, let's move on to EMEA. So they did have some matches as well as some little technical difficulties as well, but we'll talk a little bit that after. But we did have a start. Koi did 2-1 M8, and then Navi did 2-0 Vitality. So we did have those Friday matches, or those Thursday matches, sorry, go on, but Friday did get postponed. So we'll take a little bit into that. Brian did say that they are going to be postponing those for a little bit as they get some equipment switched out. They will have pros testing the new equipment when they come in, as well as doing stress tests on the servers. But as you can see, Liquid did have a 1-up on Carmine after their first map on Friday, and then we'll have to wait for the Fnatic versus Heretics match after everything gets settled. Now let's take a look at the current standings though, as everything has been settled going into playoffs. Right now we have Team Heretics, Fnatic, Navi, and Vitality moving on from Group Alpha, and then in Group Omega we have BBL, Team Liquid, Boot, and Carmine Corp. And we could possibly see some jostling after a couple of the matches, but this is what the 8 teams going into the playoffs will be for EMEA Valorant.
Well, it is official. Welcome on to the A-Zone news segment. A-Zone is the headset of choice for so many professional players, and well, it might as well be the headset that you wrap around your beautiful head for this ever so wonderful news segment. Starting off first with the Nintendo Switch. It's sold out. Who saw that one coming? The Verge did take, of course, to their platform to be able to discuss how the Switch 2 sold out ever so quickly within the first handful of hours.
Matagi Snipers are the first elderly Valorant esports team. They are a 60-over esports team from Japan that compete, and well, they have 16 members, a good number, and well, they have a main team that's about 65 plus. Junior members are ranging from 60 to 64. They have coaches, a junior team, the main team. What more could you ask for? And they're breaking down the barriers of what we perceive to be an age limit in esports. They're showing that anyone can compete as long as you have the passion.
Hit RPG has just cleared and toppled some charts. RPG clear obscure. Expedition 33 has just topped over 1 million congruent players on Steam. Have you been playing the game and enjoying, or are you one of those several million? You let us know.
And with Vitality's continued reign in Counter-Strike, French President Emmanuel Macron has congratulated them on their continued success. It is great to see the country getting behind their team. We'll continue to see if they can continue to dominate the CS scene.
Big shout out, of course, to A-Zone. Make sure that you guys go check them out and get a beautiful headset for your ever so lovely head. But as we now take the controller back off the shelf, now it's time to talk about some heavy hitters that did happen this past weekend for Call of Duty. Major 3 in Boca Raton just concluded, and wow, it was a hell of a tournament. There's only so much time left in today's show, but we're going to try to go over as much as we possibly can. Here is how the entirety of the bracket did look. And the round 1 matches were certainly interesting. LA Thieves, back-to-back #1 seed. They're going up against the Ravens, the #8 seed, after going through a roster change. Ultra versus Heretics, #5, #4. Tough toss-up there. Boston Breeze, the #2 seed. going to be going up against Optic Texas. And then Atlanta FaZe versus the Vancouver Surge. This is where things did get really, really interesting. Of course, the upper quarterfinal matchups did happen like this. Surge beating FaZe on LAN. Their hardpoint has been looking abysmal. Breach 3-0 Optic. Heretics beat 3-1 against Ultra, but they are playing with a stand-in substitution, and nobody was surprised that Thieves disposed of the Ravens. They're going to be taking up against Heretics and then Breach versus Surge, respectively, in the upper semifinals, which then we get to talk about some eliminations. Ravens drop down to face Rocker. Toronto up against LA Gorilla Mates. Optic v Falcons. Should be a good one. FaZe versus Cloud9 as well. Remember, loser of these do go home. And funnily enough, Rocker, LA Gorilla Mates, the Las Vegas Falcons, and Cloud9 New York are all of the teams at the bottom of the barrel for champs. And when it comes down to it, you gotta make top 8 just to qualify for champs. And you gotta win this series if you're Falcons to be able to make a dent into the CDL points. You are so far behind. And Optic Texas on the other side are falling behind as well. They are on the bubble now, 7th and 8th place with Boston Breach's resurgence. And they're going up against their former teammate of Pred here, starting off with the Vol hardpoint. Optic Texas did look polished and clean. Hook, 32 and 26 there at the end. Solid performance and good rotations coming through on that map mode combination. Then we go over towards the Rewind, Search, and Destroy. And albeit Exit was sitting there fighting, Optic Texas absolutely belittled them. It was a 3-0 here in the control, a 3-0 in the series. And, well, the Vegas Falcons went out with an absolute whimper. Their claws have been absolutely cut. And now they probably won't make champs. So now we go over towards our next series, which was Optic versus FaZe. Look, Optic did need to win too, but they only won that single one versus FaZe. And with Optic just barely missing out on this win versus a very dented Atlanta FaZe, kind of puts their champs in jeopardy. You go in towards the next stage, and you kind of need to make a little bit of a dent if you are Optic Texas, because again, as I said, you were on that bubble, but Atlanta FaZe never wants to go down without a fight. It went in towards the control, albeit Optic did fight through the Search and Destroy. It is the Atlanta FaZe, and they're in the lower bracket for the first time, and gosh knows how long. They will take this one 3-0, and again, there's a lot of flack as far as Optic is concerned. Ever since Major 2, they just went through a 2-man change. And with Skies coming into the mix from LA Gorilla Mates, and now Hoop coming back in since stage 1, the team still isn't producing the results of what we want to see. They were the #1 seed going back to Major 1, and now they're at risk of not even making champs. You guys let me know what you think about the Green Wall in the comments down below. But now we're going to be shifting our focus over towards the next matchup, as we're going to be talking about the Royal Ravens versus the Minnesota Rocker. And look, Carolina Royal Ravens, I mean, they were a top 5 team within the first several months of this game. And then they go in towards Major 3 qualifiers, and they drop Vivid for Dylan Rex. And although on paper, I will sing the praises of Rex, I think he's very longing for a spot in the league. It's not at this spot, man. And Rocker, they're just looking really good. I mean, ever since Kenny and the acquisition comes through after being dropped from Optic Texas, they drop Paul X, they pick up Kenny, and this team now has a very vocal leader that can absolutely gun. Who does that enable more? Well, of course, it's Big DK Nero. You saw that spree right there, especially through the hard points. Rocker are looking fierce. They only lost the control 3-1, but that's fine. They only lost a single round, and Gio stood up and let them absolutely have it. So now we shift our focus over towards Ultra and Rocker. Rocker, they needed just to win that one series to threaten to be inside the bubble, and they were able to do just that. But could they beat a Toronto Ultra even with the stand and sub? I think that one was a little bit more stretched than it was anything else, as we did tie things up through the map #2, and in towards the Vol control has been a square up throughout the entirety of the series, or the entire weekend, excuse me. But when your subs are not on point, you're going to have a really tough time. And if there's one person that was on point in this map in particular, in this series, it was the stand-in substitution for Mercules. He looked great on this map mode combination, and now Ultra took a 2-1 lead, and that set themselves up for a Skyline hardpoint, which, by the way, was Minnesota Rocker's best hardpoint map through and through the qualifier matchups. It's LAN, baby. And Joe DeCe's feeling it. Bye-bye. Minnesota Rocker will be leaving there at top 8, but they did win that initial series, which I said was ever so important. Cloud9 New York did lose 0-3 to FaZe, so more than likely we'll be missing out on champs and Falcons again. I mean, they're so far behind, we don't even need to start that conversation. So Minnesota Rocker versus Ultra just panned out. 3-1 for Toronto Ultra. FaZe versus Optic. The green wall crumbles, and now their champs is very much so under threat. FaZe will continue on into the lower quarterfinals. But as we're going on, upper semifinals would be up next naturally, and the Thieves are going up against the home and hosting team, the Miami Heretics. Boston Breach number 2 seed going up against the Vancouver Surge, who look good. I mean, you can put an asterisk in it for how weak FaZe did look, but it's Vancouver Surge and it's Atlanta FaZe. And they beat the Boston Breach 3-1. They beat the brakes off of them. Same thing could be said for Thieves versus Miami Heretics. They did go down fighting, especially for Rancor, but when the pace is a little bit higher and the submachine guns are firing, LA Thieves are a very tough team to face. So now we move over towards Saturday. As we're going to start seeing more teams to become eliminated. Mercules was the guy to be watching. Again, he was very impactful. And even in the series versus Miami, in the maps that they were losing, Mercules was still performing so adequately. Throughout all of this tournament, he still had a 1.08 KD. Throughout the entirety of the tournament, he was 8th place. He had a 74% true engagement success rate, which 75% of the time that Merc was getting in a gunfight, he was walking away with a kill or an assist. On top of all of that, his hardpoint damage was also electric. He was dropping on average 3,200 damage while also getting the objective time for Toronto Ultra, trying to enable his team at the early stages. And that just made them everything so much simpler for Ultra. Joe was firing, Insight was flying through the map like it was Cold War all over again. Cleanix, I feel like he doesn't get enough praise. He is the silent assassin, but is the young teen assassin going to be looked at and sought out by a couple teams looking at you, Greenwall, potentially to pick up this guy to impact your team? Could potentially be Boston Breach for all I know. But Toronto Ultra did go up against Miami Heretics within that Saturday, or eventually, excuse me. And I gotta say, I mean, without Mercules in this 8th spree, I don't think that this map goes the way that it does. And the vibes for Ultra do not go the way that it does. Look, they were down 2-1 after losing that map number 2 and the map 3 subsequently. But Mercules is going on this massive spree. Again, he is an AR flex substituted into a position that is set up to make an AR flex look good. Think about Scrap on this team last year. Think about Beans on this team this year as well. Merc has to load into the server, sit on the hard point, and slay, or sit around the objective, play for a trade. It's Call of Duty simplified at an elementary level, and Mercules stunned everybody in attendance watching it. Straight from challengers to a top 3 finish. I'm sure that we're probably going to see Merc on a CDL team throughout the rest of the CDL season. So here's how the lower matchups did go, as we were talking about. Ultra will be going up against the Boston Breach after losing the Vancouver Surge. Heretics will be dropped down to then go up against the Atlanta FaZe in the lower bracket after losing to the other red team of LA Thieves in the upper semifinals. So now in towards the lower semifinals, here's how things did go down. Ultra 3-1 Breach, typically a better land team, no one was surprised, but FaZe, you got some explaining to do. Silver Surfers no more. The top 6 seed actually goes out of the top 6. They deny the 3-peat for Majors and the 4-peat if you include EWC. Congratulations to the Miami Heretics. They picked that map 5, a banger, versus Atlanta FaZe. And now they're going to go up against the Ultra, as I was talking about. That one also went down to the wire. Now the Ultra were able to win that one in a map 5. They make it all the way towards the lower finals. And I got to say, I mean, for Mercules, the substitution in that debut, that is a hell of a resume builder, given the fact that he's only played a handful of challenger matches through the entirety of his first competitive year, which means that the upper finals are slated. We got ourselves the banger back on the docket. LA Thieves versus the Vancouver Surge. We have seen this so many times. 2 different qualifier matches, both 3-0s for LA Thieves. Minor 2 grand finals. It was a map 7 LA Thieves win. The Vancouver Surge were looking very, very good in this best of 5, and they were getting rid of the red card. They picked at least the map 1 for Hacienda, did the Thieves, and well, it actually played wonderfully straight in towards the Vancouver's map pool, and you can see it right there. The slaying was all good. They were completely dropping big old numbers right until we got to about the 10th hardpoint in succession, and that's where we started to see LA Thieves starting to fight. It came really close in towards that final rotation, but finally, Vancouver Surge were able to take that map 1 win. Here's the thing about dealership. Not too sure why LA Thieves look so lost. Vancouver Surge had no business looking this comfortable. Abuza was putting LA Thieves in the dirt. I mean, Scrap tried his best, but dealership is a map mode combination that if you can get from building to building or cover to cover, great. But if an AR of Nasty and Abuza duo is gunning you down, you're not going to have an easy time. Vancouver won that one 6-1. Now we go over towards control. And here's the thing about LA Thieves. They're the #1 control team. And if you can always guarantee a map 3 win in a best of 5 series, if you're down 0-2, congratulations. You're setting the series at the very least. You can rally behind it. And it's even more so to rally behind when you desecrate your opponents on the map 3. It wasn't even close. Envoy, the Dark Prince, dropped a 1.33, 1.41 for Hydra, and a 1.47 for Ernie. The entire team for LA Thieves was fighting, and Abuza was the only one to try to carry over anything that we saw from the map 1, map 2, map 3. Then I go over towards the Protocol hardpoint. This was Vancouver's pick. You felt like maybe this is going to be where they could possibly call a game. You can see right there in the rotations going back in towards P3. It certainly started to look like it until Envoy goes on a 6. Give him 7, double chow, mistimed. Ghostie's there for the cover. How about an 8-3 for the Dark Prince? You watching that scoreboard, by the way? That's right. LAT just flipped it with about a full 60 off of P3, down in towards P4. Vancouver Surge finally get a late break back, but LAT through the final set of hard points pop off. They force the map number 5 in towards a rewind search and destroy. They had no business being here, being down 2-0 the way they did. They lost map number 2, 6-1. How are we in a map number 5? And then they still won 6-4. Abuza tried his best. He dropped almost 1,200 damage across the entire series. That was the most inside the lobby. But Hydra through Search and Destroy was a real problem. We traded, we won 3 rounds off back-to-back if you are LA Thieves, but now you beat Vancouver Surge in winners finals via a reverse sweep. And now you've guaranteed yourself top 2. Congratulations to LA Thieves. They would be grand finals bound. That's now back-to-back winners finals for the Vancouver Surge, where they have lost map 5 to a team donned in red. So now they're going to drop down to lower finals. They're going to go up and face the Toronto Ultra, which back in Major 2 was the same exact lower finals. The Toronto Ultra did lose the Vancouver Surge at the time, but again, they're playing with a fill-in, so what does that even mean? I don't even know, but you have to try to play recency bias. Toronto looked good, but Vancouver have historically been better than them as the years have come along. So now, or the months, excuse me. Vault Hardpoint would be the map 1 win, and I gotta say, if you missed this map, go back and watch it. You could not have asked for a more competitive hardpoint between 2 top 3 teams, especially when one is 35-30 with a substitute player. Toronto Ultra had no business. 248, 247, contest comes through onto P1. The Ghost second doesn't come through because he drops down. So you got the foot race over towards P2. Players spawning towards the back. Nasty's closer, and nobody from Toronto Ultra can get towards the time to be able to contest it. 249 to 250, score 1 win. And now we go over towards map number 2 with a 1-0 lead for the Surge. And it went down on Protocol Search and Destroy, Vancouver's wheelhouse. They've been working religiously on their Search and Destroy through Major 3 qualifiers, and then showcased right there, they now have a 2-1 lead. In towards the Protocol control, something had been woken up for Toronto Ultra, specifically for Mercules. Says, nah, this is not where my CDL debut gets cut to shreds. It's being cut down. How about a nice little knife play towards the top side of Zip. Top trips here for Mercules, and he is an absolute laser beam. Yeah, absolutely had his way. Mercules went 27-16 in that map 3. It was a 3-0 win in the map 3 for Toronto Ultra, which means that they could extend the series into the map number 4. Went towards Skyline, which they did beat versus Minnesota Rockers. So you know that the at least false confidence was there, but Nasty, he was not having it. Him and Abuza were consistency incarnate throughout the entirety of this tournament. He goes on a spree. Neptune answers back with another 4 spree. It's 154-30 through 1 set of hard points. Is Toronto Ultra even playing the video game? The answer would be no. 100-point club, Neptune goes absolutely massive, and Ultra will be eliminated at top 3. With an emergency sub, I beg somebody hit up Mercules' line and try to get him on your team to salvage your CDL season, which means that we got grand finals. It is slated. The rematch, Surge going up against the LA Thieves yet again. Just to put it in layman's terms, we have now had these teams face against each other a handful of times. Minor 2 went to a best of 7, map 7, LA Thieves were able to win. 2 different qualifiers, 1 through Major 3, 1 through Major 2 after the Minor 2 tournament grand finals, and the Thieves were still able to win 3-0. And then on LAN, we finally got to see what these 2 teams do look like in winners finals. It went map 5, so surely it was going to be the same thing for grand finals, right? Well, the map vetoes were certainly interesting. Hacienda is always going to be a virtue for these 2 teams. Again, Vancouver leans on their hard point. It was the only maps that they realistically took in that best of 7 online versus LA Thieves. And you feel like Hacienda would play into them, especially being hot after facing Toronto Ultra and 100-point club with them on Protocol. Nasty was looking fierce. Neptune was looking good. They just came out not looking that fierce. I mean, they were playing really good trades. It allowed LA Thieves to slowly work their way back in towards the game, and I'm not gonna lie, albeit being able to flip the lead ever so slightly, and we're able to at least get a solid hold on the Rock Hill in the second set going in towards the final. But in that final set, the Thieves just locked in and they took a 1-0 lead in the grand finals. That's fine. We got the dealership search and destroy. You remember what happened in winners finals, right? Abuja went nuts. Vancouver won 6-1. The thing about LA Thieves is that they do have a very good coaching staff on their disposal. They do have Shane and they do have Sender, a world champion coach within his own right. You bet your willies they went back to study that 6-1 loss. That's why it's here in this best of 7, crying out loud. And it was as close as you could possibly had imagined. LA Thieves were keeping dealership open regardless of what happened in winners finals. 0-4 might have been fighting as much as he possibly can up on map point, but still LAT forced the round 11, and they do it again. Scrap 1v1 versus Neptune. Neptune, maybe a little bit too much pumpage for one's worth, but there's no windshield on that broken down car. Big fist bump, big old laugh. We got a 2-0 lead for the team in red. So now we go over towards control. And remember what I said, #1 control team in the game, by the way. If you can guarantee a map 3 win in a best of 5, let alone a best of 7, and you find yourself already up 2-0, Scrap win double positive, and now you have your best bet to have a 3-0 lead in a grand finals. LA Thieves were cooking, Vancouver Surge were missing. This is not the same team that we were guaranteed when it came down to the grand finals. They are faltering on the main stage again, trying their best. Envoy went down with this 6 spree. It was a 3-0 win for the control. Now we're up on championship point going in towards that map 4, Skyline Hardpoint. LAT's pick. They were 2-1 through stage 3 with a 250-183 win versus Vancouver and a 250-250 loss versus Toronto. Vancouver did beat Boston on land just a few days ago to this series happening, 250-106, but it was not there, not at all. This was LA Thieves' tournament to lose. Big roar at the end. We did have Scrap be the tournament MVP. He had a bombshell of a performance, and here's how everything did conclude at the end. Fantastic stuff coming through from LA Thieves. They are the first team this entire season to come in as the #1 seed and be the #1 team. They only lost a handful of maps along the way, 2 in fact, and that was just in the winners finals. And they only lost 3 maps during the qualifiers. So quick, simple codboy math throughout the entirety of stage 3. LA Thieves on both LAN and online have dropped a total of 5 maps, 3 to Toronto and 2 to Vancouver. Insane scenes. Clearly deserved. That was the first championship and major win for Odangosi, the one of many more into the notches of the belt for Envoy and for Hydra, as well as Scrap. Who knows how far the super team can go now that they finally got a chip on their shoulder. And with all of that being said, well, they also just surpassed Atlanta FaZe as the #1 team in the Call of Duty League for the Black Ops 6 season. So Major 4 qualifiers, they're going to be starting off this upcoming weekend as well. Not a whole lot of respite for these CDL players, but make sure you tune in on Thursday for all of that, plus some more breakdown of what's going on for VALORANT, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, and Major 4 qualifiers. All of that and more on Thursday. Thank you so much for watching. On behalf of all involved, this has been Today in Esports.